Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. So I decided I'm going to compile a couple of tips. I'll make short videos like I always do for the tips, but I'm going to compile them and try to put like 4 of them together. This one in particular is I'm doing wheel cylinders on a Ford F-150, that older one that I jump started earlier. And the driver delivering the parts just came in and he said, "Oh, your brake lights are on." So yep, brake lights are on. But there's a reason for that. I actually have the brake pedal depressed right now while I'm doing the job. If you have the brake pedal depressed while you're doing the job, the fluid won't siphon out of the master cylinder. If you had the wheel cylinders off and the line open, like I have here, fluid would be dripping out constantly. It'll self-bleed itself, so to speak. Siphon effect. And what'll happen is obviously you're going to run a master cylinder out. You don't want to do that because that's just a nightmare. So if you depress it, basically the valving inside the master cylinder pushes past the reservoir and it basically blocks it. And it'll allow you to take the wheel cylinder off and stuff like that. And while you're waiting for parts, you don't have to worry about it pushing all the fluid out and running the master cylinder empty. So there's just one tip. I hope you get something out of that. Hey guys, hope you're having a great day. I want to show you one quick little trick here that I have, that I do. I'm sure some of you know about it, some of you don't. I learned about it not too long ago, a few years ago, and I found it quite interesting. I never knew it. When you're installing a seal, let me show you, like this type here, where the seal has that spring on the inside to retain tension on the seal. I know some of you have installed them, and once you get it in place, you realize that that spring popped out from the impact of driving the seal in place. Well, this is what I do now after I was shown this little trick. I pack it with grease. Now this is actually transmission assembly lube that I use. But you pack it with grease, and what it does is it retains that spring in place. I found this to be quite helpful, especially on certain things where you try to install a seal and you got to beat the daylights out of it with a driver just to get it in place. This does work actually quite well. Ever since I started doing that, I've never had another spring come out. Hope you get something out of this. Like I said, I just learned this a couple years ago, and I've been doing this for how long? So anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day. If you get something out of my videos, hit the like button. If you could, please subscribe. It'll help me make more videos. Have a great day and keep wrenching. And here's another one. When you're doing a starter or something, or an alternator or whatever on certain vehicles, like I'm doing on this Volvo, and the starter's down there, sometimes the battery might not be that easy to get to. So what I normally do is I'll find the fuse box, like here. This is actually the lead that goes to the starter itself. There's the main lead from the battery. So I didn't disconnect it per se, I just took the nut off and took the starter feed out. So this way the vehicle still has power and I don't kill anything. I just don't accidentally short out the starter wire underneath all that mess by leaving it connected. Hopefully it helps somebody out. Alright, so here's another quick tip. Have you ever been replacing a wheel cylinder where you have the hard steel line going to the wheel cylinder and then the nut on the line is just very tight? You try to hook it up into the wheel cylinder and it's just nearly impossible sometimes. You got to sit there and really fight with it. You can't turn it by hand. It's just a nightmare. So what I do is I actually get a socket that'll fit over the end of that nut, and I'll put my gun on there and I'll spin it a couple times using the gun. And that loosens it up on the line and usually makes it easy enough to spin by hand when you're trying to thread it together. So here, you see the nut, and it's like just very difficult to turn. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my gun with the socket, and I'm going to put that down on there, and just like that. And spin it a bunch of times. So now, I can actually turn that relatively easy. Let's move that back up. Like that, and it spins nice and free. So now when I go put the wheel cylinder in, I can screw the line on relatively easy. Alright, here's another tip. Got a seized on nut. Before I sit there and just heat the nut up and drive it up the threads, take the threaded part and run it on the wire wheel. Clean up the threads. This way you're not compacting all of the debris and rust into the threads. So now I can heat the nut up and I can drag it down the threads and not have to worry about all that rust and dust and dirt and debris. Another quick tip, when you're changing your cartridge oil filter, like such, make sure you change the seal. This is the seal that I took off of there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's actually square because nobody's changed this in a while. A lot of people just leave them and don't even bother changing them. That's how you wind up with oil leaks. Alright, quick little tech tip here for you. If you're going to be replacing brake lines because they rotted out on a vehicle or whatever, before you quote or before you figure everything out, make sure the bleeder's open. I've seen it before when people say, oh, it needs a section on a brake line, and then they never bother to check to see if the bleeder's open. Well, you got to bleed the brakes. Let me show you. Like this one here, this Chrysler that I'm going to be doing brake lines on. Wheel caliper right there. Here's your bleeder wrench. Stick it on there. There, it opens. So I went around and I checked all four, and all four open. So we're good on that end. Because I've seen it where people have got to replace a caliper or whatever. So just a quick tech tip. Another helpful tip on my helpful tip series is cover all your bases. Let me show you what I got here. It's a Suzuki. So we got this little old Suzuki Samurai here. And a customer brought it in and said, it's not charging. I need an alternator. They actually towed it in. They supplied an alternator. Not the alternator. Problem was twofold. The battery is actually no good, but the serpentine belt, the regular V belt, this has a V belt, I'll show you. That little dinky buddy right there, that little dinky V belt, was really loose. Now, I don't know if you could see it. You can see the witness marks where the adjustment bolt is. And you can see that thing moved a little over an inch. So you can imagine how loose that belt was. So when we got it running, it wasn't charging at all. It was basically running off the battery. Once we put the battery in, we actually went to go change the alternator and realized the belt was that loose. You couldn't even see it when it was running. It didn't show that it was that loose, but the alternator obviously wasn't spinning. So what we did was we tightened up the alternator belt just to see. We really thought we were still going to have to do an alternator, and voila, it's charging. So I have seen that before. It's been a long time since we got rid of V-belts. Nothing uses a V-belt anymore, really. Everything uses a serpentine belt. So I actually have not seen that with a serpentine belt. But it does happen. And I'm assuming it does happen with serpentine belts as well. It's just something to keep in mind. If you like my videos, hit the like button. If you could, please subscribe. And that should be about it. So you guys have a great rest of your day and keep wrenching.